The Los Angeles Lakers are clearly at a point where patchwork fixes are not enough anymore. And when you watch this team night after night, the same gaps keep jumping off the screen. Defense on the perimeter has been inconsistent, shooting comes and goes, and the athletic punch on the wings just is not where it needs to be for a group that wants to survive deep into the postseason. That is why conversations around realistic, under-the-radar additions are starting to heat up, especially players who can fill multiple roles without demanding the ball or breaking the financial structure of the roster. One name that keeps circling back into the discussion is LUKA Agbaji, currently with Toronto. The appeal is not about flashy numbers or highlight reels. It is about fit. Toronto is quietly exploring ways to shuffle smaller contracts, largely because they're trying to stay flexible and manage their payroll, and Agbaji's expiring situation puts him right in that window. If the Raptors decide not to move bigger pieces, this is exactly the type of player who could become available without turning the entire league upside down. From the Lakers' point of view, the intrigue is easy to understand. Agbaji is still only 25 years old, turning 26 later in the season, and he brings that modern wing profile teams crave. He has the size to handle physical matchups, the length to bother ball handlers, and the athleticism to run the floor with pace. Defensively, he can realistically switch across multiple perimeter spots, which is something this Lakers roster desperately needs when lineups start shrinking in high-leverage moments. Now, the surface-level numbers this season do not jump out, and that is exactly why context matters. His role in Toronto has been inconsistent. Minutes have dropped significantly, and the opportunity to find rhythm has not really been there. He is averaging just over 4 points per game, a couple of rebounds, and minimal assists, all while playing a little over 16 minutes a night. That is almost half of the workload he was seeing previously, and it shows in his shooting splits and overall impact. When you dig deeper, the story becomes clearer. His three-point shooting has dipped sharply, hovering around the low 20s percentage-wise, but that is on very limited attempts. Last season, with a much larger sample and a defined role, he was knocking down shots at a far more respectable rate. Career-wise, he has been around the mid-30s from deep, which is far more in line with what teams expect from a rotation wing who spaces the floor and punishes defensive mistakes. The same pattern shows up inside the arc. His efficiency on two-point attempts remains solid, sitting just above 50%, but again, the volume has been cut nearly in half. This is not a player who suddenly forgot how to score. It is a player who has been squeezed out by roster construction and changing priorities. Toronto has multiple wings and creators soaking up touches, and someone was bound to become the odd man out. What makes this particularly interesting for the Lakers is how different his role would be in Los Angeles. Playing alongside elite playmakers changes everything. The quality of shots improves, the reads become simpler, and the expectations are clearer. Instead of forcing creation or taking bailout attempts late in the clock, he would be asked to run the floor, knock down open looks, crash the glass from the guard spot, and defend with energy. That is his natural lane, and historically, that is where he has been most effective. If you project his production based on per 36 minutes, the picture looks much more reasonable. You're talking about roughly 9 points, 5 rebounds, a couple of assists, plus a steal and a block. That kind of stat line does not headline a trade rumor, but it absolutely fills a rotation need for a team trying to balance star power with functional depth. Those little plays, the deflections, the contested shots, the loose balls, that is where games swing in the margins. Another factor that cannot be ignored is contractual control. Agbaji is not a pure rental. There is a team option in the short term and restricted free agency on the horizon, which gives the Lakers leverage and flexibility. You're not risking assets on someone who can simply walk away without recourse. That matters, especially for a front office that has been burned before by short-term gambles that did not pan out. Financially, this is not a player who is going to command a massive payday. Even on a new deal, the expectation would be something reasonable, aligned with rotation value rather than star status. That makes it easier to keep the roster balanced while still leaving room for future moves. In a league where every dollar counts, that kind of predictability is valuable. Of course, everything ultimately comes down to price. Toronto's motivation is tied to flexibility and direction. If they decide to pivot and retool, moving a player like Agbaji makes sense. If they stay competitive and stabilize their rotation, his role could grow again. The Lakers, meanwhile, have to weigh what they are willing to give up for incremental improvement versus holding assets for a bigger swing later. What makes this situation compelling is that it does not require perfection to work. Even a modest upgrade on the wing can have a ripple effect across the lineup. Better point of attack defense takes pressure off the back line. Improved spacing opens driving lanes. Increased athleticism allows for more aggressive schemes. These are small adjustments that add up over the course of a long season. As the trade deadline approaches, these kinds of conversations tend to evolve quickly. Standings shift, priorities change, and suddenly players who seemed untouchable become available. For the Lakers, staying ready to pounce on the right opportunity without forcing a move is the delicate balance they have to strike, and names like Agbaji sit right in the middle of that equation. Looking at the bigger picture, what really makes this potential fit intriguing is how it aligns with the Lakers' broader timeline and identity. This is a team that still leans heavily on veteran leadership and elite star power, but it also needs legs, hunger, and players who are not worn down by deep playoff mileage. Agbaji checks that box naturally. He is young enough to grow into a larger role, yet experienced enough to understand structure and responsibility without trying to do too much. One of the most overlooked elements in discussions like this is how environment shapes performance. In Toronto, Agbaji has often been asked to adapt on the fly, shifting between lineups, minutes fluctuating, and responsibilities changing from night to night. That kind of instability can quietly erode confidence, especially for a player whose game thrives on rhythm and clarity. In Los Angeles, the expectations would be far more defined. Defend hard, sprint the floor, space the corners, and make the extra pass. That clarity alone can unlock efficiency that does not show up in his current stat line. Defensively, his value goes beyond raw numbers. He is not just about steals or blocks, but about positioning, effort, and versatility. The Lakers have struggled when forced to hide certain players or overhelp on the perimeter, leading to breakdowns that good teams exploit. A wing who can stay in front of his man, absorb contact, and still recover to contest shots has real playoff value. Agbaji's length and athletic profile allow him to do just that, especially when he is not carrying an offensive burden. Rebounding is another quiet strength. For a guard or wing, his ability to track the ball off the rim adds an extra layer of security in transition. The Lakers have had stretches where one shot turns into multiple chances for the opponent, and that is where effort rebounders matter. It is not always about height. It is about timing, anticipation, and willingness to mix it up. Those traits translate regardless of system. Offensively, the conversation often gets stuck on percentages, but volume and context are just as important. His three-point struggles this season are tied directly to reduced attempts and inconsistent usage. Shooters need repetition and trust. When looks come sporadically, mechanics tighten, hesitation creeps in, and results suffer. Put him in a lineup where defenders are scrambling to close out because they are worried about star creators, and suddenly those same shots look very different. There is also value in what he does without the ball. Cutting at the right moment, relocating after a pass, setting quick screens to free up a teammate. These are the kinds of plays that do not show up in box scores, but keep an offense flowing. The Lakers have often looked stagnant when actions break down, and having wings who instinctively move can prevent possessions from dying late in the clock. From a roster construction standpoint, acquiring a player like Agbaji is not about swinging for a home run. It is about stacking singles that stabilize the rotation. Championship teams are built on complementary pieces who know their role and execute it consistently. Every playoff run features moments where a rotation player swings a game with energy, defense, or timely shooting. Those moments are rarely predictable, but they are enabled by trust and preparation. Toronto's position in the standings adds another layer of uncertainty. If they continue to slide or find themselves fighting just to stay out of the lower seeds, priorities can change quickly. Teams in that position often look ahead, evaluating which players fit long-term and which can be moved to create flexibility. Ibaji's situation fits that mold, especially if they feel comfortable with their depth elsewhere on the wing. For the Lakers, patience is key. Rushing into a deal without leverage can be costly, but waiting too long can close windows as other teams get involved. The appeal of a player on a manageable contract with team control is that it lowers the risk profile. Even if the fit is not perfect immediately, there is time to adjust, develop chemistry, and reassess. Another important factor is how such a move could open the door for future flexibility. Adding a younger, controllable wing allows the front office to be more aggressive elsewhere, knowing there is at least one reliable piece in the rotation. It also provides insurance against injuries and fatigue, which inevitably surface over the grind of season. The Lakers' needs are not a mystery at this point. They need perimeter defense that holds up under pressure, shooting that does not disappear, and players who can keep the energy level high when stars rest. Ibaji may not solve every issue, but he addresses several at once in a realistic way. That is why his name keeps coming up in these conversations. As the season progresses and the deadline approaches, scenarios will continue to evolve. Teams will reassess, values will shift, and opportunities will emerge that did not exist weeks earlier. For Los Angeles, staying engaged in these secondary markets, where value can be found without sacrificing the future, may ultimately be the difference between simply making the playoffs and actually being equipped to compete when it matters most. There's also the psychological side of a move like this that often gets overlooked. Players who feel undervalued or underused tend to respond when placed in situations where their skill set is clearly needed. A change of scenery can reset confidence, especially for someone who has already shown he can contribute when given consistent minutes. In Los Angeles, every role player knows exactly why they are on the floor, and that sense of purpose can sharpen focus on both ends of the court. Another angle worth considering is how this kind of addition affects internal competition. When rotation spots are no longer guaranteed, intensity rises in practice and effort becomes non-negotiable. A wing who defends, runs, and plays within himself pushes others to match that level. And that collective edge is something the Lakers have lacked at times during the regular season. It is not about replacing someone outright, but about raising the standard across the roster. Finally, timing matters just as much as talent. Bringing in a player before the stretch run allows him to learn schemes, build chemistry, and earn trust long before the playoffs begin. Waiting until the last moment often leads to rushed integration and limited impact. If the Lakers believe this type of player fits what they're trying to build, acting with intention rather than desperation could quietly pay dividends as the pressure ramps up and every possession starts to feel heavier. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on, in a move that has sent shockwaves throughout the basketball world, LUKA reportedly announced his departure from the Los Angeles Lakers, leaving fans and analysts alike scrambling to make sense of the news. The Slovenian superstar, who has been a central figure in the Lakers' recent campaigns, is now at the center of intense speculation regarding his next destination. While the details remain unclear, sources close to the situation suggest that DONČIČ's decision may have been influenced by a mix of personal ambitions and the team's strategic direction, though no official statement has clarified the exact reasoning behind the departure. For months, whispers have circulated about DONČIČ's potential move, fueled by his undeniable talent and the constant reshaping of NBA rosters. Now, those whispers have transformed into a full-blown narrative that has fans questioning the Lakers' ability to maintain their championship aspirations without their star guard. Social media is abuzz, with supporters expressing disbelief and disappointment, while rival franchises are reportedly exploring every angle to court one of the league's most electrifying talents. Industry insiders speculate that DONČIČ's next move could redefine the balance of power in the NBA. Teams with championship ambitions are said to be lining up, offering visions of building around the 25-year-old phenom. Meanwhile, Lakers management faces an unprecedented challenge in reshaping a roster that had become synonymous with Doncic's signature plays and leadership on the court. The implications of this departure extend far beyond one season, potentially reshaping trade strategies, free agent targets, and even coaching approaches. While no official confirmation has been released, the atmosphere around the Lakers organization is reportedly tense. Teammates are coming to terms with the sudden shift, and fans are left to speculate about the motivations behind what many are calling one of the most surprising decisions in recent NBA history. Rumors swirl about potential destinations ranging from traditional powerhouses to rising teams seeking a franchise cornerstone. Analysts warn that whatever the outcome, the NBA landscape may never look the same, with the ripple effects of Doncic's departure promising to dominate headlines for months to come. Whether this move will mark the beginning of a new era for Doncic or a period of reinvention for the Lakers, one thing is certain. The basketball world is watching, holding its breath for the next twist in an already dramatic story. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.